in the U.S., in the West generally, but in the U.S., there's never really been, or it's never really been a conflict in the West between whether they should do right or wrong. You understand? In terms of foreign policy, you know, in the West, you have, whether it's in America or anywhere else, you have the so-called hawks and you have the so-called doves. So according to the official line, the political spectrum, the doves are supposed to be the nice ones. The hawks are supposed to be, the ruthless ones, the aggressive ones, the warlike ones. Politically, that usually falls on the left and the right. The left wing being the doves and the right wing being the so-called hawks. But obviously, this is better understood in terms of good cop, bad cop, because there's not really a conflict between them. In substance, there's not really a conflict between the doves and the hawks. In substance, there's a conflict in style only. In fact, the doves are not saying we shouldn't bomb them because bombing is wrong. They're saying we shouldn't bomb them because bombing makes us look bad. You understand? But then they'll just coordinate. The good cop, just like good cop, bad cop, the hawks and the doves will coordinate. And the hawks will say, okay, we're going to bomb them. We're going to go to war. But the doves can then go on camera and weep and wail about all of the poor innocent victims. You see? The doves can stage, photo op relief missions and so on to keep the image of decency and humanity, the image of decency and humanity for the West alive, even while they're committing atrocities. It's a very well-calibrated system. It's a very well-oiled, calibrated machine. Deploy the warships, but also deploy the flotillas at the same time. It's the same old colonizer system that we're used to from the past. You come with a gun in one hand and the Bible in the other hand. You come to the global South with your militaries and with your missionaries. It's just like a pimp, really. Break them down, brutalize them, while simultaneously also love bombing them. This is what they do. I don't personally see any difference between the two sides. The two sides are on the same side. You understand? The side of Western domination and Western supremacy, both sides, left and right, dove and hawk. The truth is that both sides are opposed to our lands having any sovereignty and having any independence. That's their real position. But I know that when you're in the West, and when your language is English, for example, you're going to cling to anyone in the West who even superficially performs as if they're on our side. That's good cop, bad cop. You'll wrap your arms around the knees of the good cop because you think that the good cop wants the bad cop to stop beating you. Save me, Norman Finkelstein. Save me, Noam Chomsky. Save me, leftists. Save me, doves. Save me, low key. Now it's even save me, Candace Owens. Save me, Tucker Carlson. Don't let Jordan Peterson beat me. Don't let Ben Shapiro beat me. Stop them, please. This is all a charade. It's all a charade. But you fall for it every time. And your favorites are the ones who change sides, in a later season of the show, like a Candace Owens or a Tucker Carlson or a Marjorie Taylor Greene or what have you. In the early episodes, they're on the villain's side. But in season 3, they have some sort of an epiphany of conscience and they flip, they switch up, they change sides. This is your favorite. This is what you like, like when the Terminator becomes a good guy in the sequel. Good cop, bad cop, good colonizer, bad colonizer. That's what you've got. That's all they've got to offer. And when the bad cop, when the bad cop starts acting like the good cop, he's won your heart forever. This is the charade. It's all done to, number one, keep everything centered around them, everything centered around the West, so that you keep listening to them, keep referring to them, keep relying upon them, keep depending upon them. And number two, the other reason is to continue to make them look good, like I say, to make them look good while they're committing atrocities and war crimes. You see, they want to stab you with one hand and apply medication to your wounds with the other hand. This is how they do. The carrot and the stick. Everyone knows about the carrot and the stick. But the West has figured out that it works much better when you don't use just the carrot or just the stick in isolation of the other. It works much better when you use them both at the same time. So they'll beat you and they'll feed you simultaneously. You understand? But all they see you as, when they're giving you the carrot or giving you the stick, all they see you as is a donkey. The right and the left, the hawks and the doves, the good cop and the bad cop. They look at you the same way. They just apply different styles in how they try to enforce your subjugation. I know you don't want to hear this because you like them. You like some of these people. But if I said what you want to hear on my channel would be 10 times the size it is now. Believe me, growing a channel on social media, a channel specifically that talks about politics, growing a channel like that is the easiest thing to do in the world. You literally just have to reflect back to a target demographic audience what you know they already think, what you know they already believe, or what they want to believe. Just like ChatGPT or any of these LLMs or something. Just reflect back what the audience already thinks. You know, activate their suspicions that you know they have, their fears that you know they have, their dread, their pessimism, their prejudices, and so on. And you'll get massive engagement. You'll get all the likes and shares and views and so forth. You have to understand that these people, the overwhelming majority of these people, don't even believe a word that they're saying themselves. Someone, again, like a Candace Owens or whoever else, they are literally just mirroring you, and they're probably mocking their own rhetoric when they get off camera. They're mocking what they themselves are saying and that they're riling you up with, the rhetoric that they're using to rile you up, because they don't even believe it themselves. They're just saying it to get your attention, to get your views, to get your engagement, so that they can get their ad revenues. That's all they're doing. I mean, seriously, look back, okay? Look back over the last 2 years. What have any of these people been right about? You know? I'm talking about both non-Muslim pundits, non-Muslim people online, and Muslims online pundits, online so-called analysts, you know, credential-free journalists and so on, these independent journalists. What have they been right about? When have they been right? How many times did they tell us that the Gazans were about to be expelled into the Sinai? Or that they were going to be deported and moved to Libya or to Somalia or to Indonesia or to Jordan or what have you? How many times did they tell us that Syria was going to fall to pieces? You know, how many times did they tell us that we were about to enter World War III? How many times did they tell us that that there was supposedly a land bridge between the Gulf and Israel that doesn't exist? How many times did they tell you that Saudi Arabia was desperate? They were just desperate to normalize relations with Israel. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia, in reality, has been insisting on Palestinian statehood the entire time. They told you that there wouldn't even be any Palestinians left in Gaza by now. They told you about the Ben Gurion Canal and so on, Greater Israel and all that nonsense, destruction of Masjid al-Aqsa. It has been a continuous barrage of lies, continuous barrage of opinions that have continuously been wrong. And for 2 years, many of you have been hanging on their every word, and you never do any sort of audit about whether any of their predictions come true or not. And you just keep listening, regardless. That's what gets me. I mean, imagine being wrong again, being wrong again and again and again, and never not being wrong. And the whole time you're scared and you're depressed and you're hopeless, while you're also being wrong, but you just keep doing it. Wallahi, there's something wrong with you. Wallahi, there's something wrong with you. And for 2 years, you people have been telling me that I'm delusional, that I don't know what I'm talking about, you know? And you still say it now. Even when I put something out now, you still say it. Meanwhile, I've been telling you that where we are now is exactly where we were going to be. I was saying that even before we started the YouTube channel, the Middle Nation channel. Back when I was just on Facebook, I was telling you this. Look, I did not predict the place that we are that we're at now with regards to Gaza. Based on my hopes and my dreams, or based on my fears, or based on my ideology, or based on what I wanted things to be like, or what I didn't want things to be like, and what have you. It wasn't a shot in the dark. This wasn't just some message in a bottle. It was based on an evaluation of realistic possibilities, given the real existing power dynamics in the region, in the world, and upon trends, and then mixed with a little basic reasoning. We just moved from one point in a trajectory line to another point in that same line, and that line continues forward from here. But most of you don't make serious evaluations, honestly. You only use emotion, and you never use reason. And you operate on the basis of paradigms that no longer exist in the world, old paradigms, you know, like the assumption about American global hegemony, American power, and so forth. That this weird anomaly okay, this weird anomaly of history that saw America become the de facto superpower. You believe that it was not an anomaly, but that it was a law of nature. But it is an anomaly. And now the actual laws of nature are correcting that aberration, but you don't see it. So, like, for instance, you're afraid that America and that Israel are not going to keep their promises, right, with regards to this agreement, because they've never kept their promises. You think that they're not going to uphold the agreement because they have never upheld their agreements. Okay, that's rational on the one hand, but you're ignoring the context. You're ignoring the context which makes promises and which makes agreements breakable or unbreakable in geopolitics. And the context in which America and in which Israel had the power to break agreements, had the impunity to break agreements, that context no longer exists. And of course, like I said, you're not going to hear this from most people online who talk about the Middle East or politics. Most of the so-called analysts and the pundits and the social media personalities. You're not going to hear that from them because, again, none of those people actually care even slightly about the truth. They don't care even slightly about reality. They are interested exclusively in engagement, in likes and views and shares and ad revenue. That's all. Okay? Now, I know you could say, okay, Shahid, well, you're just another one of those social media personalities, right? You're just another so-called analyst online, so maybe you're doing the same thing. Okay, sure. That's reasonable. Except that my take on this issue is as unpopular and as vilified as it is accurate and as it is correct. The difference is that I have been right. You understand? There's been no expulsion to Sinai or to anywhere else. There's been no World War III. There's no Ben Gurion Canal. There's been no destruction of Masjid al-Aqsa. Saudi Arabia and the GCC have factually bankrolled Western support for a Palestinian state all across Europe. They have factually acquired and employed their economic and political leverage to achieve the ceasefire that we have now and the Gaza plan for peace and development that we have now. You know, I told you that Hamas was going to have to step down. I told you that they were going to have to step down and they were going to have to be disarmed and they probably wouldn't have a future in Gaza. I told you that Iran was going to abandon Hezbollah and abandon the Houthis, and all of this has happened. I told you step by step what was going to happen. And that is what has happened. And that is what is happening. And again, that's not me just guessing in the dark and accidentally being right. And every single time I've made these types of forecasts, I've gotten castigated for it. No, that's not a sound strategy for building a social media platform, believe me. Telling your audience what they do not want to hear. That's not how you grow your platform. That's the opposite of how you become a social media influencer, so-called. You become an influencer, like I say, by mirroring whatever a specific demographic group wants to hear and just repeating back to them what they already think. That's how you grow on one of these types of platforms. And it doesn't matter if it's true, it doesn't matter if it's right, it doesn't matter if it's correct, because it gets you the views, it gets you the likes, it gets you the shares, it gets you the engagement. And you fall for it every time. You understand? And you think that these people are truth tellers because they're just echoing back to you whatever you want to believe. Wallahi, they're making fools of you. I'm not telling this to try to shame you. I'm trying to tell you so that you can wake up and open your eyes. You're treating these people like heroes and they're making fools of you. No, understand, the context no longer exists. The context that you are operating from, the paradigm that you're operating from. America is a regional hegemon today. It's not a global one. No. The global economy is transitioning out of the West. It's transitioning out of the West and into the East and into the global South. There is multipolarity today. There's BRICS. There's China. I'm telling you, the old world order is evaporating. Look, America, the United States is still powerful. I'm not saying it's not. But its usable power is very limited. Because like I've explained many, many times, America's raw power, which is what most of us think of, especially the military power, this is subordinate to the owners and controllers of global financialized capital. They're not just free to use their raw power anywhere they like. They're not allowed to interfere, you understand, with the business interests of their superiors. They're not allowed to do it and they're not inclined to do it. They work for them. Do you understand? They used to break promises. They used to break agreements because it was in their interest to do that. And for that same reason, they will now uphold their promises and their agreements. Because in today's world, Zionism is no longer in their interests. They want the region to be stabilized. They want the region to be developed now. There is no incentive whatsoever for them to break what they themselves have been pushing to achieve. You understand me? I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but America, the United States, is in a spiral, and it's an engineered spiral. You're hemorrhaging jobs. Your farms are going under. Your trucking industry is dying. Your trade deficit is off the charts in every sector. Your government can't even pay itself to stay open. Do you understand? We are watching you in real time dismantling your empire, dismantling your own power in real time. You're turning all of your violence inward at Washington, D.C., at Portland, at Chicago, at Texas. Even your rich are fleeing the country, and whoever isn't rich is trying to find some kind of way out. Drilling and energy production in America is collapsing. Every policy that this administration is taking is just isolating you more and more and more. And this is by design. This isn't an accident. You know, the dollar is being phased out as the global reserve currency, the currency of trade. Do you see what's happening? You have to factor all of this in when you make your analysis. Energy markets are coordinated from the Gulf and from Asia, not from Texas. Even when Washington wants to guarantee any sort of an outcome in the world, anywhere in the world, now they need partners who can fund it, who can build it, who can operate it consistently. Okay, that means Gulf capital, that means Asian manufacturing, Turkish logistics, Egyptian labor, Jordanian corridors, and so on, when we're talking about the Middle East. America has influence, sure, but it no longer has unilateral power. That's a fact. As far as Israel goes, their economy is in a free fall. I don't know if you've noticed. They can't even finance the management of the territory that they have, much less fund or finance expansion, the fantasy of expansion, greater Israel, and so forth. This is a joke. After 2 years of genocide, 2 years of regional strife and conflict and tension, the economic risk premium is now baked into everything with regards to Israel. Insurance, borrowing, FDI, tourism, tech, human capital retention, everything. Their mobilization of their troops pulls workers out of their economy. Ports are facing recurring disruption. Gas and electricity planning can't be de-risked without regional cooperation now. You understand? They're not free. Israel's fiscal deficit reached, I think, 8.5% of GDP in September 2024, and that was up from just 1.5% a year earlier. External debt is expected to be 70% of GDP. The Bank of Israel, I think, estimates that war-related costs for 2023-2025 could amount to $55 to $60 billion. Multiple ratings agencies downgraded Israel, which increases the cost of borrowing for them at precisely the moment when Israel needs maximum debt capacity. Do you understand? They're in a very difficult position. They haven't been this vulnerable, and they haven't been this weak in 50 years. In the wake of what they have done in Gaza, Israel is going to have to go on an absolute tear of structural adjustment reforms to their economy when this is all over. Austerity, privatization, spending cuts, loans, on and on and on. The full neoliberal treatment. But this time, the beneficiaries of those structural adjustment reforms are not going to be Westerners. The beneficiaries are going to be the Gulf, it's going to be Arabs, it's going to be Turkish investors, instead of Americans. Meanwhile, reconstruction next door in Gaza, well, that's going to require consistent power and consistent water and so forth. And all of these are controlled by firms that are headquartered in Riyadh, in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai, and in Doha. Okay, yes, Israel still has a capacity for technology innovation, for example. But they can no longer secure the physical and the financial environment that their economy needs on their own. They can't. Things like energy, water, trade routes, investment confidence, investor confidence. Now, all of that depends on regional cooperation. It depends on regional cooperation and Gulf capital. They must integrate into a regional operating system. They have no choice. Understand that American subsidies to Israel, because that's what they've gotten, American funding for Israel, has been disproportionately military aid. And most of that military aid has actually gone to American companies, not into the Israeli economy. Israel has never had the ability to be a functioning, autonomous economy. It never did. And it has never been less able to do that than it is right now. It's never been a question of whether or not Israel was going to be a dependency. There's only ever been a question about upon whom they would be dependent. Okay? Up until now, they've been dependent upon the United States. They were dependent upon the United States only because that worked in the previous but now obsolete world order. But today, like I've said, the global order is in transition. It's not the world in 2025 that it was in 1995. Trade growth is South-South trade. Okay? Manufacturing is multipolar. Standards, payments, logistics, all of this. This is all being written in multiple capitals across the world all at once. BRICS Plus is not just symbolic, it's substantive. They set the pipes, the settlement rails, credit lines, shipping lanes, insurance pools, food and energy swaps, on and on and on. This is the water that Israel swims in now, whether they like it or not. This is the water that they swim in. Listen, the GCC didn't just accumulate capital over the last 30 years. They didn't just accumulate money. The GCC has built a capacity for regional management. Okay, that's what they've done. You don't see it maybe. Sovereign wealth funds, utilities, contractors, port operators, insurers, and the bodies that set standards, industrial standards and so forth, industry standards. The GCC is planning at 50-year horizons. They sit at the crossroads of Wall Street, the Wall Street's A national capital, and the Global South's material economy. They speak both languages. Gaza's reconstruction, regional sort of power pools, desalination, ports, digital payments. These are all being designed, they're all being financed, and they're all being operated from that center of gravity, the GCC, the Gulf. So now bring this back to promises and whether they can be broken or not. Because like I say, people worry that the promises are going to be broken because they remember that previously all agreements have been performative. In the old system, the parties that were the most able and the most likely to violate the terms of an agreement also controlled the enforcement of the agreement itself. You understand? So breaking an agreement was completely without any cost. There's no consequences. But that's no longer the case. That's why I'm telling you that that fear is outdated. What makes a promise breakable, or what makes a promise unbreakable in geopolitics, in one word, is dependency. Who controls the inputs? Who writes the service levels? Who can reroute supply? Who can refuse clearance? Who can absorb retaliation and keep operating? This is exactly what we've been explaining through Middle Nation with our relative power index. You have the metric of decision authority. Okay, decision authority now sits with the actors who can impose binding outcomes in real time, who can turn grid capacity up or down, who can open or close a port window, who can price insurance, who can clear payments, who can release or withhold tranches of cash. Much of that, not all of that, but much of that is in the hands of the GCC and partners who are closely tied to the GCC. Like, I don't know why anyone would think that Jared Kushner, for example, I don't know why anyone would think that Jared Kushner works for the Zionists or that he works for Israel or for the Americans for that matter. Jared Kushner is a front man for GCC money, full stop. No more, no less. Control of inputs is regionalized. Electricity, water, fuel, food logistics, cement, steel, the finance lines for reconstruction. This is all being coordinated from Gulf-centric platforms, all of it. If commitments are violated, then the inputs are modulated. Do you understand me? There's a system here. This is why the GCC has never really cared about the nonsense that people spew online about them. Why they don't really care about trying to correct people's misperceptions about the GCC. Because they literally control the realities on the ground, so it doesn't matter what people say. And in terms of the RPI metric of immunity to retaliation, well, this is higher for the Gulf than it's ever been. They have the diversified portfolios. They have multi-currency settlement policies. They have flexible shipping. They have security partnerships that make any sort of pressures very survivable. You saw that with the strike on Doha. Pay attention to what happened. That was when Israel hung themselves with their own rope, believe me. They thought that they were crossing the finish line when they bombed Doha, but it turned out they were just crossing the Rubicon. And in terms of the Gulf's Adaptability. That's another metric in the RPI. They've got the cash, they have the spare capacity, they have the agility. This is all concentrated in the GCC. People don't understand, for example, that their Vision 2030, Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, and all their big projects like NEOM and so forth, these aren't what people imagine they are. They're not like Western style projects. These are all part of a decades long economic strategy. And so they'll adapt and they'll recalibrate all the time. They have a tremendous capacity for agility. They have a tremendous capacity for adaptability. This is a capacity that their bottomless cash flow gives them. No one can compete with that. Again, you can like it or not. Israel can like it or not. You can feel whatever you want to feel about it. It doesn't matter. It's just a statement of fact. Anyone who is involved in international finance, anyone who is involved in international investing, international business, completely understands what I'm saying. Okay, look, Israel's, what you can say, standalone profile, they still have some strengths. I'm not going to say they don't. They have some strengths in technology and in intelligence. But their weaknesses are absolutely chronic and unresolvable. And sure, like I said, theoretically, the U.S. still has raw force projection ability. But this is meaningless in the context of today, because their force projection, like I said, is completely subordinate to the interests of the OCGFC. Did you know that Egypt is set to start 500 new exploration wells for oil and gas? Do you remember when I said that their locked-in deal with Israel to purchase Israeli gas? I told you that that's a gambit. That's a gambit. You all thought that it was proof that Egypt was a slave to the Zionists, because that's what your sickness dictates you to believe. You can't be objective. I told you that they have now positioned themselves, Egypt positioned themselves as the ones who control Israeli gas exports, and that then Egypt is going to be able to re-export Israeli gas for their own profit, because they're going to increase their domestic production, their domestic production of energy for their own domestic needs. Do you understand? That's what I said. They have locked Israel into selling gas to them instead of selling gas to anyone else. That's called dependency. And then they'll be able to now, like I said, use that gas to export it to external markets for Egyptian profit. Just like I said, you know, it's funny when people scoff at the idea. I hear this all the time. They scoff at the idea that the Arabs are playing 4D chess because you have such an inferiority complex that you think that normal chess must be 4D chess. They think that normal strategic thinking and normal politicking is beyond our capacity, just because they themselves cannot wrap their heads around any of this. So they think that it's some sort of delusional fantasy. They think it's 4D chess because they themselves struggle to understand how to even play checkers. But they think that they're very clever for being dismissive of the Arabs and for being dismissive of the Muslims. No, you're actually just announcing the fact that you have no qualifications whatsoever to even discuss these issues. You know, it's like you're reading a newspaper from like 1908, reading a big headline about the construction of the Titanic, and you're still right now thinking that it's the biggest and the mightiest ship at sea because you never got the memo that it sunk. But you call yourself informed. So do you understand, with regards to the way the context has changed, with regards to the way the dynamics have changed, the paradigmatic shifts that have happened, how this changes things, how it changes things in practice. Money is conditional now. It's tied to milestones. It's tied to contractual obligations. If you don't fulfill those obligations, you lose the funds. Money is tied to compliance. That's leverage. That's power. That's control. Everything is connected now. The grids, the ports, the desalination plants, the pipelines, all of this is going to be connected. They're not going to be national anymore. They're going to be regional circuits running off the same logic or running under the same logic. So the moment someone disrupts that system, well, the levers will kick in, the kill switch will kick in. Power gets rerouted, prices adjust, and so on. That's the new diplomacy. Economic diplomacy, you can call it. It's like a circuit breaker, you know? If you want your ships to dock, if you want shipping insurance premiums to be low, to be affordable, you want credit to flow, then behave. Do you understand? That's how it works. Money isn't going to wait for protests and diplomatic condemnation. They don't have to. You act disruptively, then the markets that you do not control but are controlled by, they'll just recalculate and put your economy in a vice. So when I said that we would arrive here, where we are now, it wasn't guesswork. I was just reading the slope. You understand? America's role is shifting from being a unilateral enforcer to being a necessary participant, one of many, in a broader consortium. And Israel's role is shifting from being a regional outlier, from being able to defy the region, to being just a market that has to integrate with the rest of the region in order to function. And the GCC's role is shifting from being merely a capital provider to being really a system architect and an operator. And the Global South's role is shifting from being an audience to being a co-author and an editor of the global economy. Like I've said many times, when you're watching a ball bouncing down a staircase, no, it's not fantasy guesswork to try to predict where it's going to end up. It's fairly obvious. But I know, of course, that these same types of people, these people that I'm talking about who opine online, they're going to jump on any headline. They're going to jump on any event that's even slightly disruptive because, again, they can't tell the difference between a pothole, they can't tell the difference between a speed bump and the actual end of the road. You know? So there were so many pro-Assad leftists, camouflage neocons, who were screaming about how Syria was descending into Libya-like chaos, Libya-like internecine violence, and how Israel was going to take over Syria and this and that and the other. They would scream about that anytime there was a clash with the Druze or what have you, anytime there was any sort of an incident. Because like I said, they don't have any actual understanding. They don't have any idea actually about the region that they are screaming about. They have an ideological position, and they have an obsolete paradigm, and they have a fervent desire to garner views. That's all. They don't care even a little bit about what's true. They don't care about Syria. They don't care about Gaza. They don't care about genocide. Honestly, everything is just a vehicle for them. Everything, Gaza, Syria, genocide, everything is just a vehicle for self-promotion, a vehicle for virtue signaling. And as I say, obviously for generating ad revenue. Because yes, obviously no one said things are going to go smooth. There are going to be bumps in the road. I said that years ago, like I say, even before October 7th. And I've been saying it for the last 2 years. The transition is going to be rough. There's no question about it. There will be opposition. There will be resistance. There's going to be attempts probably by the neocons, by the Zionists, to try to disrupt and try to delay and try to deny what is inevitable. But none of that changes anything. That doesn't change anything ultimately. Things are still going to move in the direction that they've already been moving, because they've been moving in this direction for years, and they're not moving in this direction arbitrarily. Like I said, we're living through points in a trajectory line, and it's going to keep moving on that trajectory. Gaza reconstruction is going to proceed under Gulf managed conditionality. That's going to happen. Electricity, water, hospitals, housing, all protected by the logic of asset security. You understand? That's the new system. Palestinian institutions are going to gain some degree of localized authority under GCC auspices. As I say, you can feel upset about that if you want, but it's not significantly different than the way things were during the time of the Khilafah. It's not significantly different than it was under the Islamic Empire. Supposedly you wanted that. Israeli decision makers are going to learn that escalation triggers economic tripwires now. The choice is not going to be between peace and security. It's going to be between either integration and cooperation with growth, economic growth, or isolation and decline. Look, American policymakers have already accepted the reality that any durable outcomes in the region and any prosperity for themselves in the region requires Gulf financing, Asian supply, Turkish and Egyptian cooperation. Okay? America still has a seat at the table, but they're not at the head of the table, not anymore. The wider region is going to build a single operating environment, collective sovereignty, like I've been saying, a soft empire. That's what's being built. This is the new context. This is the reality. This isn't sentimental, okay? This is literally structural. We've moved from one point in the line to the next, and the line still runs forward from here. And anyone can see where it goes. You should be able to see where it goes. Look, I know that people would tell me that I'm being arrogant, or that I sound arrogant or condescending or what have you. I hear that all the time. But look, there is no ego involved here. Ego is the whole problem. Ego is the whole problem that has made so many people so wrong all this time. Because your ego won't allow you to look at reality the way it is. Your ego won't allow you to admit, for example, that you're potentially engaging in matters about which you have no knowledge or expertise, but you still want to talk. Politics is being treated like it's just another genre of entertainment. That's your ego, not mine. It's like you're debating about, Iron Man and Lex Luthor or Darth Vader or something, not about real geopolitics. That's the way you talk, or like it's anime or something like this. Honestly, sometimes I think if Hollywood or if Netflix was actually producing anything worth watching, most of you wouldn't even be talking about politics. You wouldn't even be discussing politics because all you're doing is passing the time. This is just entertainment for most of you. Someone's got to tell you. Someone's got to tell you. And if that makes you think that I'm arrogant or if that makes you think that I'm condescending, okay, that's fine. You can have your opinion, but I'm also right. It's like currency valuations, with money. Some currencies are worth more than others, right? Well, in that analogy, the Middle Nation analysis is like the Kuwaiti dinar. Well, most of what most people are listening to, that's like Lebanese pounds or Filipino pesos. Honestly, look, Middle Nation is not just this channel that you're watching. It's not just the new channel. It's not just the old Middle Nation channel, the Shahid Bolsen channel and the Middle Nation channel. It's a whole ecosystem. Middle Nation is a whole ecosystem, especially on Telegram. There's a discussion group. There's a regions discussion group. There's a book discussion group, and so on. Okay. All of this is for educational purposes. All of this is for training. All of this is for advancing people's understanding, free of charge. Inshallah, at some point we might do courses, but that's still in the works. But all of this is available. All of this is available. All you need to do is come and listen and observe, just for a while. Follow the conversations, follow the discussion over time. Because we have literally thousands of people at Middle Nation who have been able to keep themselves calm, cool, and collected over the last 2 years, no matter what's happening. Because they understand what is actually going on. They understand the patterns, they understand the trends, they understand to watch the waters, not the boats. And they don't go back and forth hysterically from headline to headline like a pinball. There are some absolutely brilliant minds in Middle Nation, outstanding intellects. You'll get insights from the ground in the Middle East, from Asia, from Africa, from so-called Latin America, and even from Europe. And I'm there daily, interacting daily. Well, I think that you'll find that those of us at Middle Nation, including me, are more accessible, and we're more responsive, and we are more consistently engaged with people than any of these other people that you have been listening to online, any of these people opining online, any of these pundits. I don't think that's arrogant. I don't think that's condescending. We're literally talking to people every day, answering questions every day. Okay? Accessible every day. But yes, it is a disciplined discussion. Be prepared for that. It is structured. It's neither an echo chamber nor a cacophony. Understand? The Middle Nation ecosystem, taken all together on all platforms, operates like a kind of course in and of itself, like a free university. So if you want to learn and you want to understand, then come over. We're building epistemological sovereignty, intellectual sovereignty. As an ummah, we absolutely can stand on our own. We don't need anybody else, morally, economically, intellectually, and in every other way. We don't need to play along with their good cop, bad cop charade. We don't. We don't need to elevate the kuffar pundits who artificially or superficially express the right opinion because the algorithm tells them to do that. No, you deserve to understand things. You deserve to know the truth, and you deserve to understand the world that we live in. And you don't deserve to just be lied to just be manipulated, to just have your worries and your sincere concerns exploited by people who are just using your concerns so that they can go viral. We're not right or left. We're not hawk or dove or any of these things. We have no agenda except for what we have clearly stated, which is exclusively to advance the economic sovereignty, the political independence, and the psychological decolonization of the Muslims and the global South more broadly. That's what we care about, and we're upfront about it. And those first two priorities, political independence and economic sovereignty, are dependent upon the last one, psychological decolonization. And psychological decolonization depends upon the establishment of epistemological sovereignty, which means to define the truth according to our own sources of knowledge. You understand me? Replacing the uncritical import of Western frameworks with critical study of our own intellectual heritage, from our own intellectual heritage, our own history, our own intellectual language, where every single claim that you come across needs to be tested across three metrics: revelation, empirical reality, and sound reasoning. And yes, obviously, we look at history. We look at history, we look at consistent patterns. And like I said in the beginning, one of the most consistent patterns across history is that the people that a lot of you are listening to online, these Western non-Muslims, or even Muslims in the West who have become enamored with non-Muslim Westerners, one of the most consistent and most undeniable and reliable patterns in history, both in the distant past and right up to this morning, is that they never do anything but lie. So we don't have to take a single one of them at their word. No, we cross-check everything and anything that they say against everything else that we know, what we know to be true according to our own sovereign analytical system. You understand me? This is how we build intellectual independence. This is how we decolonize our psyches and how we inoculate ourselves against the propaganda of our enemies. The last thing that they want is for us to think for ourselves. The last thing that they want is for us to stop consuming their media, consuming their entertainment, consuming their narratives, and start using our own minds, start having our own thoughts, start forming our own understanding, and start seeing them for what they really are, and start seeing through all of their alibis, all of their excuses, all of their spin, all of their euphemisms, and all of their false narratives. Because wallahi, once we reclaim our minds, then the colonizers will have lost access to the most precious resource that they have ever exploited, the resource upon which their whole power structure depends. And that's the only way that we can ever truly be liberated.